And now, live in studio, cutting through your typical media nonsense and offering you a rational and unbiased perspective on current events and life in Tampa Bay. He's a successful entrepreneur, published author, top listing agent, a real estate and finance expert that goes to bat for you every day as a consumer advocate. Your host and the consumer quarterback, Brandon Rhymes.
Yes, here we are again another day, committed to being your consumer advocate, all about helping you understand your buying decisions here on the Consumer Quarterback Show. And we appreciate you spending some time with us here on the Consumer Quarterback Show. And we want to be your consumer advocate. Save our hotline number in your phone. We're accepting calls. On-air number, off-air number is 813-670-7372. Call or text at 813-670-7372. And we have a great lineup for you today here. We're going to talk heavy on estate plans. Attorney Joe Pippen back on the Consumer Quarterback Show. Estate plans, advanced medical directive, lots of things happening in that space. Welcome back to the show, Joe.
Hey, thanks, Brandon. Glad to be here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So we're going to dive deeper into estate plans, medical directives, family law, things happening here on the Consumer Quarterback Show. You had mentioned something, some of your clients may be affected with the nursing homes and some of the limited.
Yeah, I had one I'm in one of the nursing homes where I had 30 people got infected, and she was one of them, unfortunately. And so it's kind of scary because I'm this particular client's power of attorney, healthcare surrogate, living will. And when you get a call from a doctor saying, "Are you the power of attorney for so and so?" and you say yes, and then they said, "Well, does she have a living will?" and you say yes, and then they said, "Well, if she has to go on a ventilator, that would be artificially maintaining her life, because if she gets that far advanced, she's never going to come off of it. So, do we have your permission not to hook her up to the ventilator?" So, I mean, that's I didn't know I was quite getting into that, having to make that kind of decision for a client. I mean, she has no spouse, no children, and so she chose me to be the one to handle everything. But that's a tough decision.
Wow, yeah, because that's a little bit outside of the normal. It would seem, and please let's elaborate on this. When you think about a ventilator in these types of situations with a virus that's known to attack the lungs, would that be standard to treat with a ventilator, or is that considered, prolonging the life through? Well,
they said if she went on the ventilator at her age and her condition with all the other medical things going on in her life. I mean, she's an older lady.
Yeah.
Who she said she would never come off the ventilator. So that would be kind of the ventilator would be artificially maintaining her life to support her condition. Right. And she said, so my advice would be not to put her on the ventilator. She'll be there forever.
Right.
So I said, okay, well, I said, that's not my decision. The document says 2 doctors have to determine she's vegetative, terminal, unconscious, end stage. And if she's in that condition and 2 doctors deem that she should not be artificially maintained that way, that's your decision, not mine. But I definitely would support whatever you decide.
Yeah, that seems like the way to go, especially. And if you look at COVID-19, the virus, it's really affected that population 85 years or older, significantly more so than your middle-aged, normally healthy type people.
Yeah. So Brandon, if you had this virus and you had to go on a ventilator, I mean, you would be healthy enough to most likely recover and be able to have a normal life. But if you're 88 years old and you go on a ventilator and you're never going to come off of it and have no quality of life left,
right?
Well, what would you want to do is the question.
Exactly.
And I don't think I would want to be on a ventilator the rest of my life. So,
right.
I think I would support the decision to disconnect.
Right. Yeah, I understand. Yep, definitely. Especially but if someone in my position though, if it were me, then the choice, that same question posed would be, how would that be answered differently, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I've had some cases in estate planning, since that's our topic today. I've had some cases where, say the husband something happens to him and he's never really going to be the same. But on the other hand, as long as he's living, he gets $8,000 a month in retirement. And if he dies, his wife's only going to get $4,000. I've had people make the decision, well, let's just artificially maintain them as long as we can. I have the other end of this whole side too come up once in a while.
Right. Wow.
And
Yeah.
then
That's
I
an
then I have
interesting.
other yeah, then I have other clients whose medical insurance will run out. So then all of a sudden the medical society seems to think that their life is not quite as important to maintain as it was before when they were getting all their medical expenses paid through insurance. I mean, you don't nobody ever thinks about all these things, but probably an estate planning attorney as to what the motives are and what's the best plan and what documents do you do. I mean, it's all very, very important, and everybody should have estate planning documents for sure.
Right. Yeah. When you think about the estate planning process and the fact that your family is going to be the ones that are put into these positions to deal with what's left over, and a lot of times it's the daughter, the son, the nephew, or folks in that position where if the family would have planned ahead, they could have, number one, saved a lot of money in probate cost, the properties and going through probate and those types of scenarios. By the way, if you just joined us, we're talking with attorney Joe Pippen, Joseph F. Pippen Jr. Law Offices. And by the way, Joe has his own show, Ask an Attorney, radio show, live on the weekends for over 34 years. It's the longest running show in Florida, the history of Florida, Ask an Attorney. So we're talking with attorney Joe Pippen. So yeah, Joe, these estate plans, it's a necessary, it's something that people should definitely be proactive about.
Yeah, and I always give clients an option. When a clients come in for estate planning, I say, well, look, here are your three options. And you can do nothing. A lot of times they'll come in with nothing. I say, if you do nothing, here's what happens. If you do a will, this is what happens. And if you do a living trust, this is what happens. And on the first two options, doing nothing and even having a will, even though you did something, there's still going to be some probate fees. And probate's a 3 to 6% fee, takes 6 months to a year. You can do a living trust with just a fancy will. And on your fancy will, when you die, your trust is still living. So the successor trustee that you choose takes over and can administer everything with no probate very quickly and privately. And the cost difference is very, very minimal between doing a will package and a trust package. So most clients just readily say, well, I never thought about that. My last attorney didn't tell me about this. I've never heard anybody mention this. So I think the trust sounds like the best way. And I'd say probably 90% plus of my clients, that's what they choose to do.
Right. Yeah. It seems like the best way to really protect your assets. We're talking about, asset protection here when it comes to real estate, and, people build up these estates over their life. And have some of the laws changed recently on, someone passes, they want to give some of their assets, whether, money in the bank, real estate owned, to a loved one. Have the Trump tax plan, has any of that stuff changed recently in that regard?
Well, you can leave $11.5 million $8 tax free now if you're a couple twice that. So there's not really an estate tax on 99% of estates these days, because a couple can leave $23 million tax free, and an individual can leave $11.5 million tax free. The only thing that's really changed that's made me change a lot of documents is what to do with retirement accounts, because if a couple has a young children, the beneficiary can't be the young child, because then you're kind of forcing a guardianship proceeding for the child. So what you do is you have a trust to maintain the money till they're 21, 25, 30, whatever age you want to pick. And if you have a retirement account, the language goes into the trust where they get the money after they reach a certain age. But under this new government act, people have to take retirement accounts within a 10-year period. Now, if you're a minor child, that would start, when you're 21. You wouldn't have to take it all when you're 21. But there's a lot of planning that goes into these documents to make sure everything is in compliance and you don't have adverse tax consequences on doing the estate plan.
Right. Yeah. Because if you have a young minor and you kind of see their personality is very extreme, or the type that would potentially go out and party and spend a lot of the money, then you might wait till a later age to give them the majority of the funds, and vice versa with other kids. So you can actually set that up differently for different siblings. Correct?
Correct. And so what some people do now, because they have siblings, they have children who would spend all the money too quickly, and the 10-year period doesn't even seem like it would be the best thing to do is they'll create leave their money to a charitable trust, and the charitable trust would set up a lifetime payment plan for the child, and then at the end of the child's life it would go to the charity. So you can get past the 10-year rule by doing some strategies like that, which are kind of fun to work on, those ones that have the extreme planning to not make sure the kids don't get it all at once and waste it.
Yeah, and there's also I've heard about or seen that there's certain provisions where, you know, if at some point they need to access it for emergency housing or a reasonably priced used vehicle for transportation, are you able to put those types of things into that document?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. What goes in a trust, what doesn't? Insurance and annuities and retirement accounts don't really have to go in the trust unless you want to control the distribution for at least 10 years. Automobiles usually don't go in the trust because they don't go through probate. Boats don't go through probate because you have the same type of titles that you do. Personal things, jewelry, furniture, collections, things like that don't really go into the trust because they don't go through probate either. So mainly what goes through probate would be real estate, cash, CDs, money market, stocks, bonds, things like that. And you don't want to die with those just in your name. You don't want to die with your homestead just in your name. Because then it's in a deceased person's name and it requires probate. And if you do a trust, you can avoid all that.
Right. Okay, good. Well, that sounds good. We're more from attorney Joe Pippen here on the Consumer Quarterback Show. When we come back, we also have our feel-good story of the day coming up. Captain Tom Moore receives over 125,000 birthday cards here on the Consumer Quarterback Show. Follow us online at Brandon Rhymes1 on Instagram and Twitter, the Consumer Quarterback Show page on Facebook, and link up on LinkedIn. We'd love to connect. We'll be right back.
All right, this week we're going to talk about something exciting as usual.
We always have something exciting.
Yes, we do.
At least it's exciting to us.
But this is a question that comes up.
TV, hey, it is Friday night. We're not here. Yes, we pre-recorded once again because WeBeam TV is working over in Tampa with Dancing with the Stars.
62 Who Knew. I almost said Professional Mortgage Alliance, Joe's Bar and Grill, but actually it's our 39th week of 62 Who Knew.
We're at the wonderful steampunk event at the Verizon Event Center here in 2019. I think it's still August, right? Yep. Woo! Can't remember June. Ask an attorney about Florida law.
Yes. To be able to help businesses to do that part of it. But it's just been a couple years.
Well, and I've taken the business card files from our business cards.
Entrepreneurs and professionals of Tampa Bay, welcome to your hour for getting the information, the tools, and the connections for
Battles on Radio Influence.
Or you say left-hand white, and then they catch the left-hand white. What it does, it helps you quick with hand-eye coordination. Yeah.
Well, that's kind
As your super connector, we want to introduce you to our 50-plus show partners. We got over 80 categories of expert contributor advice here on the Consumer Quarterback Show, and we want to.
That's where we disagree, but that's okay.
I said nonviolent.
That's okay.
Because, you know, we're one of the only states that don't give them back the right. We've got Jamie Limbaugh. He is from the Next Step image. I love that name because you were telling me earlier.
For the type of republic we actually are is actually very correct. Yet politicians and regular people use these words interchangeably, even though technically they are very different.
If you're an overdoer, overachiever, people pleaser, we tend to neglect ourselves. Mm-hmm. And even as Sisters Connected here, you know, with Women Unscripted, I know.
All right, welcome back. Thanks for sticking with us. Brandon Rhymes here. We really appreciate you reaching out, and we've had an uptick in calls lately. Our off-air number of people are reaching out, asking questions about estate planning, tax planning, real estate law, finding out about their credit, all types of different areas that we can help you here on the Consumer Quarterback Show. 813-670-7372 is our off-air consumer advocate number. You can call or text that line, 813-670-7372. Had a lot of folks reaching out last week during Diane Vance's segment talking about a rent versus own. What am I paying to my landlord versus what I could be owning real estate for? We offer a free rent versus own analysis. William Crowley, a lot of times we talk about credit improvement, people reaching out, trying to improve their credit, getting ready for that purchase. So lots of ways we can help you here on the Consumer Quarterback Show. ConsumerQB.com is the website as well. This segment is brought to you by Two Maids and a Mop, the official cleaning partner of the Consumer Quarterback Show. Is Two Maids and a Mop right here in Clearwater. Reach out to Tabitha and her team. They do a great job cleaning. They come in and two maids come in and clean our whole house, and we really appreciate them. They do a great job. Two Maids and a Mop, the official cleaning partner of the Consumer Quarterback Show. As you know, I'm the owner of the Platinum MVP team. My wife Lindsay and I own and operate a top team here in Tampa Bay, and recently featured in Florida Realtor magazine again for the 6th time. This is the May 2020 issue that we were featured for branding and marketing in the industry's trade publication. We were recognized in Florida Realtor magazine for our marketing and creative ways to promote your brand, and we really appreciate them highlighting us and our team and all the support from our partners and clients. So Florida Realtor Magazine, check it out there. And a couple of hot listings. What we do is we offer our listing clients an opportunity to get exposure on our syndicated radio and TV show here based in Tampa Bay. 520 George Street. This is a gorgeous lakefront, waterfront, on Lake Tarpon home. This property is beautiful. There's some professional photography, compliments of Fabre Frameworks. We have drone photography available as well, mother-in-law suite. Great opportunity to own right on Lake Tarpon here in Tampa Bay. Also, some properties available here in Tampa Bay at 13733 LaRue Drive in Hudson. This is an affordable family home, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage. Owner pride definitely shining through. Very clean, beautiful property. Great opportunity to own real estate. So if you're thinking of buying, selling, or investing, check out platinummvpteam.kw.com, and we would love to talk to you. platinummvpteam.kw.com. And we got a great lineup for you here today. We're doing a one-on-one with attorney Joe Pippen. He's an estate planning attorney. He also has his popular radio show on the weekends as well on the Salem Network family of stations. Ask an Attorney radio show live on the air. Over 34 years running, Joe. Not many people can have that accolade and say they've had a show popular on air that many years. How do you do it, man?
Yeah, I don't know anybody that has a show that long. It's actually 36 years now.
36 years, okay.
Started in 1984.
Nice.
And nobody has a show with the same host, same format that's gotten up every weekend on Saturday and Sunday. I have a Sunday show too. That's done radio that long. So somebody like Joe Weaver at Salem told me the only person who knew that been on radio longer was the Grand Ole Opry show. I don't know if that was a dig or what, but anyway. But I enjoy doing it. I mean, I would rather do that than play golf or go fishing on Saturday morning. I just love to go into the radio station. Of course, we don't go on the radio station anymore. We do it by Skype or some other way. But it's it's a lot of fun, and you do help a lot of people.
Yeah, that's cool. I think that's what I love about being on air is, getting those calls, helping people through the process. There's so many different scenarios that come up, especially in real estate. Hey, want to get my brother off the deed, my sister, all these different scenarios that play out. And,
well, that's a good question. How do you do that?
Yeah.
Because they think it's easy. They think they can just go down to the courthouse and sign a new deed, and that takes them off. And I said, no, it's not quite that easy. You got to get them. They are an owner. They have to sign off. You have to have their signature, witness, and notarized, and they can give you a quitclaim deed, or there are ways to do it, but you can't do it by yourself just because you don't want them on there. So I made a mistake. I didn't mean to put their name on there. They haven't paid me anything. They didn't pay up. So I said, well, you might have to do a petition to quiet title or some other way to get their name off, but you can't just go do it yourself. They're an owner.
Right.
You can't get rid of their ownership. Yeah, you can't go say, well, that's it. I'm mad with them. Take their name off.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, I've had parents do that.
Wow.
You know, and there's a difference between life estate deed and like a ladybird deed. Because I've had people do like a life estate deed that you couldn't change, and the remainder is set. And a ladybird deed, of course, you can always change the remainder. So those are some things that come up in estate planning concerning real estate that everybody should be aware of also. And I have people also a lot of times ask me about whether they can put their homestead in a living trust, and are there any adverse consequences to that? And that's actually a great question, because people fear different things about trust, and sometimes that's one of them. There's special language that goes in the trust and special language that goes in the deed, and you don't lose any homestead protections. You don't lose any homestead benefits. You don't affect the step-up cost basis when you die, when you put your property into a trust. So those are all good. And if you want to avoid probate and make it quicker and easier, you know, basically, parents die, first successor trustee contacts you, you can list the property immediately. I mean, as soon as you have a death certificate, you can you can represent that successor trustee. Whereas opposed to a probate, they might have to wait a month or more just to be appointed the personal representative to have the power to sell the real estate. So the parent, you know, the child, the personal representative would have to wait a month before they could retain you to sell the house. Now, a lot of times,
isn't it taking longer now as well, Joe, with the COVID-19 pushing a lot of cases back?
Well, yeah, it takes. I had a client conversation this morning where somebody died, and he said, the funeral home said, "Well, usually get the death certificate in a week, but now it's 22 days is the lag time when even getting a death certificate."
Wow.
And then the probate court takes at least usually a month to process the papers through the probate court, but you need a death certificate before you get started on a probate, or even the trust administration. What I advise my clients to do, I said, well, let me talk to the realtor, because we can do the listing agreement and we can put contingent upon you being appointed by the court, or there's no reason to delay the realtor from selling the property as long as the realtor knows that you're waiting on a court paper that's going to come for sure, but they just don't have it yet. You know, the listing agreement can show that everything's contingent upon the appointment of the personal representative or the acceptance of the trustee. And there's no reason, I don't think I've done many of these, where the realtor can get started right away and just make everybody aware of what the circumstances are.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've got one like that we should definitely talk about off air. It's a situation where we've been waiting for that to happen. And, you know, it hurts the seller because, you know, hey, it's a hot market right now. And this is a perfect example with the way the virus came in and slowed things down. We could have had this property under contract pending, you know, the
appointment.
The appointment of the personal representative.
Yeah, I don't know why you couldn't do it now. You just go make it aware in the listing agreement and everything that you're waiting an appointment for the personal representative.
Yeah. So
and if you have an attorney letter in your file that says, you know, appointment is imminent, I know of no reason why the appointment will not be successful.
Yeah.
Then you can show that to the buyer and seller, you know, and you set the closing date just based on the appointment.
Right. Once they have the appointment, then you could close after that. And then saying that it's imminent, is there what would be some of the challenges to that? Like a family member saying, "Oh, well, you know, I want to be the personal representative."
Well, the appointment of representative is picked by the person who created the will.
Okay.
So the appointment, let's say it's a son or a daughter. I mean, there's not going to be much challenge on that. The most common reasons to challenge anything are incompetence when they made the document, which requires a lot of medical proof, or they were unduly influenced.
Right.
Now, if you got 3 kids and you treated them all equally, a third each, I think it's going to be hard to challenge who the person chose as to be the personal representative. You could, but most people don't do that because they're going to spend a lot of money and probably not be successful.
Yep.
So I don't know. You have to look at every circumstance. If you have undue influence, usually happens when one of the children come into the attorney's office. Attorney doesn't chase them away. Documents done, and that person who brought them in is favored as opposed to the other children.
Right.
Now, as soon as I see somebody bring their parent in, or the child's with the parent, I say, look, you know, I need to ask you this question before we proceed. I said, how many children you have? 3. Are you treating them equally? Yes. Okay, good. I said, that's good. I'm cool with that. The reason I asked that question is because if you're going to leave everything to this one child that brought you in, adversely to the other two, then I can't do the document today. So I didn't even want to get started and ask any more questions, because if you want to get this done that way, you need to come back on your own. You have to make the appointment. The child can't even bring you to the office and sit down in the parking lot. I need to deal with you totally independently with nobody influencing you or assisting you to even get to the appointment, or the document could fail.
Right.
So those are always interesting. Sometimes the kids get mad at me, and I'm just telling them like it is. I'm just trying. I'm telling you this so there won't be any litigation, so the attorneys won't make all the money at the end fighting over all this. You need to do this properly from the start so you can avoid all that.
Right. Yeah, that's the challenge, Joe. You see it so many times in business. Two people get upset. They spend a lot of money. It could be in a divorce situation. People are, fighting, but ultimately the people are losing. They're losing. The attorneys are, racking up fees and billable hours, and so the more people can be collaborative during these types of processes, and not blowing up and going to the extremes, and negotiating from a standpoint of empathy and finding that common ground, trying to find out and understand, hey, let's work together in these situations. But that's great that your law office does that. You're trying to avoid these issues in the beginning. We're talking with attorney Joe Pippen, Joseph F. Pippen Jr. Law Offices and Associates right here in Tampa Bay. Stay with us when we come back, and we're going to talk a little bit about, what happens if the will gets lost, or it's destroyed, you can't find it, and also some of these DIY, the do-it-yourself type folks that are out there. What are some of the common mistakes that people make if they do try to go online and do a probate, will, living trust, advanced medical directives, some of these types of documents on their own? We're going to ask the attorney on that as well. So stay with us right here on the Consumer Quarterback Show when we come back. Also, our feel-good story of the day. Every day we're going to tell you something positive in our feel-good story. So Captain Tom Moore receives over 125,000 birthday cards. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
All right, this week we're going to talk about something exciting as usual.
We always have something exciting.
Yes, we do.
At least it's exciting to us.
This is a question that comes up.
TV, hey, it is Friday night. We're not here. Yes, we pre-recorded once again because WeBeam TV is working over in Tampa with D'Angelo Star.
62 who knew. I almost said Professional Mortgage Alliance, Joe's Bar and Grill, but actually it's our 39th week. 62 who knew.
We're at the wonderful steampunk event at the Verizon Event Center here in 2019. I think it's still August, right? Yeah. Woo! Can't remember anymore. Ask me about
Yes. To be able to help businesses to do that part of it. But it's just been a couple of years.
Well, and I've taken the business card files from our business cards and made
Entrepreneurs and professionals of Tampa Bay, welcome to your hour for getting the information, the tools, and the connections
Ian
for
Backles on Radio Influence.
Or you say left-hand white, and then they catch the left-hand white. What it does, it helps you quick with hand-eye coordination. Yeah.
Well, that's kind
as your super connector. We want to introduce you to our 50-plus show partners. We got over 80 categories of expert contributor advice here on the Consumer Quarterback Show, and we want to.
That's where we disagree, but that's okay.
I said nonviolent.
That's okay.
Because, we're one of the only states that don't give them back the right. I've got Jamie Limbaugh. He is from the Next Step image. I love that image because you were telling me earlier.
For the type of republic we actually are is actually very correct. Yet politicians and regular people use these words interchangeably, even though technically they are very different.
You're an overdoer, overachiever, people pleaser, we tend to neglect ourselves. And even as
All right, welcome back. Thanks for sticking with us. Brandon Rhymes here. I'm your host of the Consumer Quarterback Show, powered by the Platinum MVP team at Keller Williams Realty. I'm a top listing agent in the area. We're out of the #1 office for the entire Mid-Florida Regional MLS, the Tri-County area here in Tampa Bay. Our Keller Williams office did $630 million in volume in 2019, so it's the top office in the entire Mid-Florida Regional MLS. Our team was actually the #1 team out of the top office here in January. We had the most amount of sales for our office. So we're real excited about working with all the buyers and sellers, investors out there. And we have our unique radio and TV show model to help our sellers maximize the exposure on the sale of their real estate properties. For example, we've got a couple of hot properties here in Tampa Bay for sale, available here for instant sale. 14527 Potterton Circle in Hudson. This is a property that's another entry-level home, very clean, 3-bedroom, 2-bath property, fenced-in yard, great neighborhood here in Tampa Bay. Highly desirable gated community, Highlands community in Tampa Bay, Hudson, Florida, representing the area of Pasco County. And we also have, let's take a look at our property over at 422 Wildwood Way. This is Wildwood Way in Bel Air. This is a gorgeous home. The owner put over $130,000 into recent upgrades at 422 Wildwood Way in Bel Air. Check out all of our listings at platinummvpteam.kw.com. And this segment is brought to you by Golf Cart Depot. Golf Cart Depot. Say hello to our friends Marty and his sales team over at Golf Cart Depot. They now have the Icon electric vehicles available as well at their Land Lakes and Clearwater location. They also have the Easy Go, Star EV, Cushman, pre-owned and remanufactured golf carts available here in Tampa Bay. They've got a special going on a Easy Go Valor gas property golf cart, and they're also going to let you test drive at your home. They will bring the test drive to you. So check them out online. Let them know the Real Estate Quarterback sent you for special incentives. Just by mentioning that you heard about them here on the Consumer Quarterback Show, you're going to have special offer and incentives from Golf Cart Depot. Let them know the Real Estate Quarterback sent you. All right, we got our special guest, attorney Joe Pippen, on the show today. He's a plethora of knowledge in the estate planning, probate type law, and we're talking about different types of scenarios. And a lot of people get that they come out of college, high school, whatever it might be, Joe. They fall in love, they get married, and then you have a high percentage of divorce rate on that first marriage, and they're into a second marriage, which they're saying, hey, we got to make this one work. Let's make this marriage work. So second marriages, how does that affect the estate plans?
Well, I recommend almost all second marriages, particularly if the assets are uneven. You might have one with a fair amount and another with hardly anything. So the answer to that question, Brandon, depends upon who I represent. That's kind of a joke.
Yeah.
So I'm representing the one with a lot of money, or I'm representing the one without any money. So let's say I'm representing, first of all, we'll use the example, or I'm representing someone with a substantial estate.
Yeah.
And their spouse-to-be doesn't have much. So, and the advice comes up about whether or not you need a premarital agreement or not. So if someone has substantially more, and let's say they have children, and let's say their spouse-to-be has children, where do you want the estate to go if you pass away? Because your spouse has certain automatic statutory rights. They have a spousal right to live in the homestead for life, or sell the homestead and take half the proceeds. Now that can be pretty scary to somebody newly married, not positive. They failed at their first marriage, let's say, and they don't want to fail again and lose another big lump of money to the second spouse. And I hear this commercial about the guy who can loan you money and he's on wife number 3, and he can get you. Have you heard that commercial? Like $1 million, and I forget the guy's name. It doesn't matter, but if you want to enter into the marriage and you want to have a period of time to make sure the marriage is going to work, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and you don't want the spouse to have any claims if you should die against your estate because you want to give your kids the majority of it, then you do a premarital agreement. In a premarital agreement, your spouse is going to waive the rights to what the statutory rights are, and you be able to give your spouse whatever you want to give your spouse. I mean, you can override the premarital agreement with provisions in your will or trust that give your spouse more, But on the other hand, she's waived her rights. You don't have to give him or her anything. Now, if you're on the other side of this, and you don't have much, and you're marrying somebody with some, then probably the advice would be to resist signing a pre-marital agreement if you can. And sometimes if your spouse is going to demand it, well, this is the only way I'm going to get married is if we have a pre-marital agreement, and you want to get married, then I guess you go with it.
Right. Yeah. And just think about, negotiating. If you can, negotiate some of those points, you want to seek independent counsel anytime you're entering into these types of agreements. But yeah, so that's the challenge. Second marriages, you see more and more of those. We've all heard about the divorce rate being over 50% now. So that's a part that happens. What about if, hey, I lost my will, we can't find the will, or it was destroyed? What do you do in those situations?
All right, before we get off of premarital agreements,
yeah.
You can negotiate. It's a good point, because suppose you want to negotiate that you waive your rights for the first 5 years, but after 5 years you think, the marriage has lasted that long, you should be entitled to something. So you can negotiate what that would be. And if you've been married 10 years,
right?
If you've been married 20 years, I don't want to have waived all my rights 20 years from now. We've got a great marriage. I wanted to negotiate that a little bit. And let's suppose you get married without a premarital agreement, and you hear a show like this, and we're talking about it, and you say, "Doggone, I should have had a premarital agreement." Well, you can do a postmarital agreement. Wow. So you can do a marriage after agreement to discuss these things. And then some, once in a while, I've heard the answer: "We've been married for 3 years, and now he or she won't agree to anything." But if that's the case, that's too bad, because there are statutory rights in place. And if you still love one another and you've always promised, well, I would never object to your assets all going to your kids. That's not why we got married. Well, put it in writing. Because if it's not in writing, it's not worth very much.
Right.
And the exercise, and the other thing before we go to the next topic is, and a lot of couples would say, well, that would never happen.
Right.
We promise each other this and that. Well, guess what? A lot of times one spouse will die, and let's say they're older now, and one's slightly incapacitated, either mentally or physically or both.
Yep.
And their life is could be being controlled by the power of attorney. So the power of attorney could make things kind of greedy on the part of the parent that's living, the spouse that's living. Now it's not, thinking 100%. It's not on the ball that much. It's not sharp. Might not care. Might be depressed. And now they've got the younger child that's more aggressive, wanting to get part of that estate, wanting to sell the house and take out the proceeds, or getting their statutory share. A lot of times, if you don't have a post-marital agreement, it's not your loving spouse that's calling the shots. It's their power of attorney. That can be pretty scary sometimes.
Right. Yeah. And if you just joined us, we're talking with attorney Joe Pippen, a highly respected attorney here in the Tampa Bay area and longtime radio show host as well. He has his own show called Ask an Attorney on the weekends. Check him out online for details on that. And yeah, so the other question is, what if the will is lost and destroyed?
Well, you can probate a lost will, but here's the situation. Probating a lost will, you have to serve all of the interested parties with a copy of the lost will you're trying to. The court's only going to accept the original will for probate. So if you don't have the original will, then you have to try to probate a lost will. So then you have to serve all of the interested parties, all of the bloodline parties,
right,
with papers saying this is what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Well, suppose one or two of them were omitted. Well, are they going to accept that? No, because their argument would be, well, they must have wanted me included, so they destroyed that old will. They planned to go to an attorney to add me in there, but before they could get there, they just destroyed it because they didn't want. That would be their argument, whether that's true or not. That would be what they would say, probably.
Right.
So then there's a contest, and then basically the court has to decide if that lost will is a valid will, and that's what the intentions were. And you go through this whole long, costly proceeding to try to probate a lost will. Now, if you didn't have a will, there's a probate proceeding. If you lose a will, there's a probate proceeding. But probate is a expensive process, so people should really be told and coached. And I tell them, you need to keep your will and trust in a safe deposit box, or a waterproof, fireproof box at home. You need to protect the originals. I'm going to give you the originals and an extra copy. You can do whatever you want to with the copies, but please protect those originals because that's very, very important.
Yeah, that is important. So those are good places to keep them, and then letting people know where you keep them. Some of the other stuff that people don't think about, especially in 2020 now, with passwords, bank account access, passwords to certain websites, or access to the online banking. Those are important things to think about as well, Joe.
Absolutely. We give all of our clients little organizers for passwords. We give them organizers for like church and funeral instructions and family addresses. We give them a separate writing sheet where they can itemize jewelry, furniture, knickknacks, collectibles, and if they want. If they promised a handful of special things to someone, you need to put that in writing and sign it.
Yeah.
So all of those things are just taking care of business, and everybody should that wants to have a good estate plan and be a good steward of all the assets they have. That's exactly what they should do.
Yeah, absolutely. So more from attorney Joe Pippen here coming up. Joe Pippen, he does the estate planning law, does probate avoidance. The website is ATTY, short for attorney, PIP.com, ATTYPIP.com, and you can find them online, or of course on our website, consumerqb.com. You can see links to all of our expert contributors, 80 different categories of consumer advocate content and advice here on the Consumer Quarterback Show, all geared towards making you a smarter consumer, helping you understand your buying decisions, helping you avoid a lot of the commission-based advice that's so prevalent out there in our community and online. So stay with us for more with attorney Joe Pippen here on the Consumer Quarterback Show, as well as our feel-good story of the day. Captain Tom Moore receives over 125,000 birthday cards. Pretty cool story coming at you right here on the other side of this break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Follow us online at Brandon Rhymes 1 on Instagram and Twitter, Consumer Quarterback Show page on Facebook, and we would love to connect. And we're back. Brandon Rhymes here, your host of the Consumer Quarterback Show. Thanks so much for spending some time with us. Also, I want to give a big shout out to our first responders, medical staff, the doctors, all types of nurses, all the folks out there, pharmacists, everybody involved and hurt by this. And of course, a lot of the small business owners, everybody that's involved in helping us recover. And we appreciate, I think we're seeing the light at the end of this tunnel. So we appreciate all of you that are in those specific industries. Plus, you save with us at the Consumer Quarterback Show and the Platinum MVP team, veterans, first responders, nurses, teachers. We will actually reduce our commissions, rebate monies back to you to help you afford that house, help you get into properties. We're also buying properties cash. We have a Keller offers program. Anybody that that's interested in selling quickly, they want to close in a matter of days, quick closes. We're able to facilitate that through Keller offers, so we can make instant offers where you can close quickly on your real estate transactions. We got some hot properties here. A couple of here's a commercial opportunity. Anybody out there that's looking for a 1031 exchange opportunity, 19206 US Highway 19 in Clearwater. This is a corner lot. It's a car lot, and it's a freestanding building. You've got a lot of opportunity for growth here, and maybe changing up the layout of the property. 19206 US Highway 19 North in Clearwater. It's priced over $1 million, but it's a large parcel of land. Great opportunity. You can hold approximately 60 cars as well, and have another opportunity for a back lot with additional vehicles available there as well. We've got vacant land available for developers, 4214 Peaceful Lane in Land O'Lakes. This one's listed just over $1 million, as there are 8 waterfront lots available on Peaceful Lane in Land O'Lakes. So attention builders, developers, entrepreneurs. 5 lots are right on the waterfront, and this is a ski lake as well, 90-acre ski lake. Owners motivated, and it's 4214 Peaceful Lane in Land O'Lakes. 8 total lots, 5 of which are right on the waterfront. I've got a lot of vacant land available, dozens of other vacant land listings here in Tampa Bay, ranging from Palm Harbor, Largo, Seminole vacant land. I've got land out in Riverview, East County. Reach out. We'd love to talk to you about some of our other vacant land parcels available for sale. Check out PlatinumMVPTeam.kw.com. PlatinumMVPTeam.kw.com. This segment is brought to you by Replenish IV Solutions, the science of nutritional balance. Say hello to our friend Steven and Lisa Gunnan over at Replenish IV Solutions, the science of nutritional balance. What we're talking about is the Myers cocktail, different types of vitamin IV drips directly into your bloodstream. They do make house calls as well, so they'll come out to your home, they'll come to your business, and they will deliver a nurse on site to administer these vitamin IV infusion drips. So what a great time to boost your immune system. Reach out to our friends at Replenish IV Solutions, and make sure you let them know the Real Estate Quarterback sent you, so you can take them up on the special offers and incentives just by mentioning that you're a fan of the Consumer Quarterback Show. All right, we've got attorney Joe Pippen on the show with us today. Thanks for taking some time out of your busy schedule. I know you're backed up with a lot of clients day to day, Joe, and you do a great job with your radio show.
Yeah, this virus has actually increased my practice, because everybody now has the fear of what might happen to them. And they want to get their documents updated or make some changes. You know, during your spots there, I got to thinking about, I always think, I watch your spots, I think of things we could talk about that we hadn't really planned. But what about that business owner who dies? What about that business that he or she has run, put all their blood, sweat, and tears into this business?
Right.
And a lot of people don't have plans as to the succession plan of what happens to that business. And that's an important part of estate planning, because, you know, who's going to be your successor? What's going to happen to the business? Do you have a key man? Do you have key man insurance? Are one of your kids active in the business, and you want that child to have the business as opposed to the business being shared by 3 equal children? There are a lot of important decisions that you can make, and if you don't make them, guess what? You know, it could be that that business is going to be split up, and there's going to be arguments, and you need to you can have a whole business plan of who's going to run the business. If you have a trust, was the trustee going to run the business, or do you want to decide someone else? The trustee can handle all the financial assets, but you want someone else to do the business part of it. Do you want to have that child that's worked right along your side forever and ever? You want them to have the business. Do you want them to have the majority of the business? I mean, there's just a lot of decisions you make in estate planning that you don't even think about till you hear maybe you and I talking about it, as to what's really going to happen on, you know, this business owner. I'll put that off. I'm going to get to that. Yeah, well, guess what? Sometimes you work so hard, you have a heart attack, you never get to it. All that's very, very important in estate planning.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of things to think about, that succession plan, and you look at the big companies versus small companies, mom and pop. But most companies have a value. If you've been up and running for a while, you have a value. There's a book of assets there. There's physical assets, intangible assets, intellectual property assets, a lot of different types of assets. And you mentioned key man insurance. That's important as well, to protect, if you are the key man or woman, of course, in the business. there's insurances available. We work with Doug Levi, Strategic Insurance, to talk about those types of scenarios. Business loss insurance, that's another one, Joe. I know there's been some scenarios where people are saying, hey, can we access this business loss insurance? And then, of course, a lot of times the insurance companies try to skate around the fine lining, the fine wording in there of business loss insurance. I know it's not your practice, but have you heard anything about that business loss insurance right now, and if it's being paid out?
Well, I think it's slow. I think the money runs out pretty quick. So if you don't act pretty quickly, you're not going to get it till the next round of money comes about. But yeah, a lot of people should be talking to their CPA and maybe their attorney about getting some of that money to keep their business running.
Yep.
You know, another topic maybe we can talk about is you own a bunch of rental properties. Are you constantly buying and selling rental properties? How should they be owned? Well, you know, if they come see me, I'm going to probably tell them you need to have an LLC, and you need to put that property in LLC to protect your other assets from lawsuits and liability issues.
Right.
And then when you get into that person's buying a bunch of rental homes and trying to build up their rental homes, well, how many LLCs do you have? You have 8 pieces of real estate, and 6 of them are rental homes. Do you have 6 different LLCs, or you put them all in one? Well, if you put them all in one and there's a lawsuit, they're all affected. If you have separate LLCs for different rental properties, you can group them into how much equity. The ones with a lot of equity maybe should have their own LLC. The ones that you've got full mortgage on most of them, and there's not much equity, maybe you could group those into an LLC. So a lot of little things like that for asset protection come into a person's estate planning, and those things are very, very important in protecting your estate.
Yeah.
Not only do you want to protect it against probate, you can assign an interest in an LLC to a trust to avoid probate. So you got some asset protection going on in the planning, and you've got a estate plan to protect against going through probate. See, all of those things are very, very important for anybody listening to the show to. And you know what? If you don't write down, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do it now. If you don't do it within a couple of weeks, you won't think about it again until we do another show about it. I mean,
right.
So that's what happens. People say, I'm going to get to it, and they put it down. It's a great idea. I wish I'd done that. Or I really need to do that. And then they just kind of table it. And that's life. I mean, I totally know that. So you and I tell them enough times, they'll get around to doing it. But, sometimes they put things off too long, and sometimes they never get to it.
That's right. Yeah. Never leave sight of setting a goal without taking some type of an action item toward that. Set it up in your Google Calendar. If you can't do it now, put it in your phone. Make it a Google Calendar event. Reach out. Go to attypip.com. Save that as a favorite. Hey, I'll come back to it later. I can't do it right now. attypip.com. Reach out to estate planning attorney Joseph Pippen, and it's like that toolbox. You've got all these different tools in your toolbox, LLCs, putting them in your trust, all these different ways you're going to be able to protect yourself, protect your family, protect your assets. And Attorney Joe Pippen can help you navigate that. More from Attorney Joe Pippen after this. I want to talk about our feel-good story of the day. Captain Tom Moore receives over $125,000 or 125,000 birthday cards, rather. Tom Moore received 125,000 cards for his 100th birthday after raising $34 million for Britain's National Health Service. The World War II veteran recently completed his goal of walking 100 laps around his garden to raise money for healthcare workers on the front lines affected by the coronavirus pandemic. Well-wishers from around the world have sent him thousands of cards, and his grandson Benji was involved as well, asking to help sort the massive influx of cards as well. And the volume of cards that have been sent to Granddad is just astonishing, Benji told BBC News. And so many cards were truly heartfelt and had a great message with them. And actually, WWE got involved and offered Moore a custom world champion belt to commemorate his 100th birthday. So pretty cool story there in our feel-good story of the day. And I want to go back to Attorney Joe Pippen. What about these DIY people? You get them out there trying to sell their own properties, making mistakes and pricing them as well. But when it comes to DIY with your wills and your estate plans, what are you seeing in that space, Joe?
Well, I tell my clients, so let me look at this document, and I look at them, and most of them, I'll ask them a few questions, and they didn't do what they wanted to do. And the consequences, a lot of people, did you yourself will, or do you know your will's going to go through probate? No. Do you know your out-of-state friend that you named as a personal representative doesn't qualify in Florida? You don't have any contingencies of if the person dies that you left money to, where does it go if they die? It's silent. I mean, there's just so many things that people can do wrong, and a lot of times they leave things to minor children. I mean, it's just a whole long list of things that I've reviewed, and I would say the majority of documents I've reviewed where people have tried to do it themselves, they haven't done a very good job and realize it after I review the document and talk to them a little bit. And, I charge $150 for a will. If you want a will, don't do it yourself and pay 60 or 50, or if it's free, then I'd really be worried. But, why not have someone do it that does it every day, that can ask you questions and get down on paper what you really want to do and have it done properly.
That's right. Yep. Reach out to Attorney Joe Pippen, ATTYPIP.com is his website. And thanks so much, Joe. We appreciate you spending some time with us. Say hello.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. I will. Okay. Thanks so much.
All right. And we want you to please go out there and consider committing a random act of kindness. Do something kind for one another now more than ever. We need positivity out there. We need positive vibes. No negativity, positivity everywhere you go, and be that force for good in the community. We'll see you next time right here on the Consumer Quarterback Show. Check out consumerqb.com.
You've been listening to The Consumer Quarterback, Brandon Rhymes. Whether it's real estate, consumer, or financial advice, let Brandon call your next play. Contact Brandon Rhymes at 813-670-7372. That's 813-670-7372. Online at consumerqb.com. And join us next time.